what's up guys, and welcome back to Move Plus. Hope you're all keeping well out there. So as for now guys, we'll look at that warm up. So it's gonna start off with 2 minutes of cardio of your choice. Now we're actually gonna blend 2 movements together with this one. So the first one is gonna be a plate ground overhead. So that is gonna be going from touching the floor to locking out over the top of our head. Okay, we're gonna do 10 of those and then we're gonna go into 20 flutter kicks. So that's setting up down in a hollow position, kicking the legs back and forth for 20, and those 2 movements will just go back and forth for that first 2 minute block. The following 3 minutes is going to be 30 seconds of plank shoulder taps, so setting ourselves up into a plank position, tapping the opposite shoulder. Okay, and then we're going to come up into some good mornings. These will just be body weight, so just hands across the chest and just hinging over and then back up again. And we go back and forth on that for the remaining 3 minutes as 30-second blocks. Good to go, Maddie? Yeah. All right, starting in 10. 3, 2, 1, and go for it. So 2 minutes of cardio up front, guys. You can pick what you want to do here. You don't have to do the same thing as us, but you're welcome to. If you are wondering sort of some other ideas, things to do, things like skipping, jumping jacks, running. If you've got space to do like shuttle runs is good, bear crawls, anything that's just nice and simple and nice and continuous that we can keep on the move for 2 minutes. As I said before, we're going to be doing these plate ground overheads for 10 reps and then the flutter kicks for 20, and that will just cycle for these 2 minutes. So as always, guys, we want to just take the time to kind of ramp the intensity up gradually, give the body time to get the joints loose, get the blood flowing, all that sort of thing. So 20 reps on the flutter kicks. So a good thing about these 2 movements being kind of paired up together, guys, is we've got one that is going to be a kind of a hip extending kind of a movement, and the other one that is going to be a little bit more of a flexion kind of movement. So they're going to kind of counteract each other or work well together to hit most of the muscles around the body at the one time. So you want to make sure you keep your back nice and straight with these ground overheads, guys. So you can see Maddie kind of flaring the knees out, going that wide stance so he's got enough space for the plate to go between his shins. And he's hinging at the hips rather than rounding over. The top position there, that head is going to pop through as he hits the lockout. Nice. So down to the flutters again. So with this one, guys, we're in a hollow style position. So it's shoulders up off the ground, legs are off the ground, and we're just kicking them back and forth. So each kick will be counted as a rep, doing 20 of those, and just trying to keep the knees nice and straight so you actually pivot from the hips rather than the knees bending and it looking like you're pedaling a bicycle, basically. 10 more seconds. Okay, 3, 2, 1. So going to shoulder taps for 30 seconds. Okay, so creating a nice stable position, guys. We're in a push-up style position. See, Maddie has split his stance a little bit. That's just to create a little bit more stability there. He's going hand to opposite shoulder and just working really hard through that trunk to stop the hips from swaying excessively side to side. 5 more seconds, and then we're going to move to those good mornings. And go for it. So coming up to this one. Now this one, guys, generally speaking, you're going to have the stance about sort of shoulder width, but you can play around with a narrow stance. You can play around with a sumo stance. All these things are good. You can kind of hit the muscles a little bit differently each time. Mobilize those hips and loosen up the hamstrings. So the important thing with this is that we kind of localize that, or we kind of isolate that movement down to the actual hip joint itself rather than the spine bending over at all. 3, 2, 1, and down to shoulder taps. Now you might notice that Maddie is on his knuckles with this one. This is just something individual to him that he does to get his wrists into a more comfortable position. We generally will do this one palms flat on the ground, so you guys do that at home. Maddie's got nice active shoulders, so he's not sort of slumping into it and the body's not getting into weird bad shapes as he takes the hand off the ground. He's trying to keep everything fairly still. 3, 2, 1, and back up to good morning. So we'll go to a wide stance this time, Maddie. So looking at that nice sumo stance there, we're going to unlock the knees, okay? But it's just an unlock, it's not a bend. We want pretty much 95% of the movement to happen at the hips. The knees softening is just to allow us a little bit more range of motion. You'll find that if you lock your knees right out, it's actually quite hard to get down there and maintain the back at the same time. He's keeping his head in a nice neutral position there, so he's not kind of craning that head back too much. 3, 2, 1. So one more time through these. If you are pretty confident with this movement, guys, you feel like you've got it really locked down, the hips are staying dead in the middle there, play around with narrowing the stance in if you want to. That makes it less stable and therefore is a higher demand on your midsection to control it. So you can see Matty's gone down to almost like a hips width or even narrower kind of position and requires a lot more control. 3, 2, 1. Last sort of good mornings to finish it off. Now, if you're moving through this, guys, and you find that you get to, say, like halfway, and you can't go any further without sacrificing that spinal position, don't go any further. Just keep hinging at that same point and just gradually encouraging it a little bit further, maybe a centimeter further each time. This sometimes can take time to build that flexibility up. It might not necessarily be there straight away. 3, 2, 1, and done. All right, so that's the warm-up done, guys. Grab some water, have a bit of a chill. We're gonna have a look at MOVE next. All right, guys, we're gonna have a look at the MOVE workout now. So how this one runs is we have 2 6-minute sections. There'll be a 2-minute break in between them. What we're gonna see in each of those 6-minute sections is as many rounds as possible as you can do of 3 deadlifts. So we're gonna have our double dumbbells or whatever weighted object you have at home. Okay, so first one's gonna look like this. So it's just from ground to stand up. That then rolls into 6 dumbbell hang power cleans. So this is going to be from just above knee height up to front rack position. Okay, and then we move into 9 dumbbell push presses. So it's a dip and drive up to lockout. And that's just going to be on repeat for those 6 minutes. As I said, we go through that 6 minutes, 2-minute break, and then we go into another 6 minutes after it. Good to go? All right, starting in 10. 3, 2, 1, and go for it. Now, hopefully what we should see for at least sort of a portion of this, guys, is that you can run the 3 deadlifts into the 6 hang power cleans, into the 9 push presses, and do it almost as a complex. Now, that's not necessarily going to be the story for the entire workout, especially if the option of weights you have at home is it's quite heavy. But we want to hopefully be able to link it together a little bit, even if it's just deadlifts into hang power cleans or hang power cleans into push presses. Try and string some of it together if you can. And then when you hit that level of fatigue, especially when we get that second 6-minute AMRAP, we've obviously been working for a while, you might start to break it up a little bit more. But just trying to work on that sort of cycling and getting that really nice fitness from hanging on, working the grip strength, all that sort of thing. So looking at 3 deadlifts, 6 hang power cleans, 9 push presses. Matty's gonna have a little break after the round, which is a good idea. Obviously this is gonna build into quite a large amount of work over the full 12 minutes. So don't have to go pedal to metal the entire time. We just wanna find a nice pace that's maintainable. Nice, Matty. So a good idea with these ones where we're dealing with sort of quite a bit of time on the clock is looking at your time splits per round. So how long did the first round take? Can we stay on that kind of cycle for as long as we can? Or have we gone out too aggressively? Have we gone out too slow? Those sorts of things. So get some awareness of how much work is happening in how much time and see if you can get into a pattern of repeating that. So that gives you a little bit of a goal as well. If you know it takes you, say, 60 seconds or it takes 90 seconds to do a round, you can try and stick to that cycle each time. Now looking at the deadlift, the movement, guys, 2 things we need to see is dumbbells touching the ground and then a nice tall stand up at the top. With the hang power clean at the bottom, we're gonna stay above knee height, at least with the hands. You might find that the ends of the dumbbells might drop a little bit below them. That's okay, especially if you're pointing them down like Matty is. At the top, we're gonna drop into that little half catch. So it's like a quarter squat in the front rack position and then standing tall. Okay, and then we go through the push press. It is a dip drive up to lockout. Now, something that Matty's doing that I'm a really big fan of when we're doing this is he's pausing at the overhead just for a moment. Doesn't have to be too long, it's just enough to establish good control. If we are throwing those dumbbells up and then they're just falling down immediately, we're really not working that strength of that lockout position. So we want to try and take a moment to get that locked in place. Okay, so just rolled over halfway this first section. So another quick little shake off of the limbs, and then we'll get in the next round. Now, something we've spoken about in previous times, guys, with this deadlift, touching the ground with the dumbbells is desirable, but not necessarily like something that we have to have, right? Especially if your flexibility doesn't allow for it. I don't want you to try and touch the ground by rounding that back over and getting into bad position just for the sake of touching the ground. If you work on hinging, maybe it's wrists to the level of the knees, or maybe it's midway down the calf there, wherever you can get to with a straight back and a nice clean hip hinge is where we're after. So keep that in mind as you're going through it. That might be a level of flexibility you have to build to over time. A similar sort of thing with this overhead. We want to find that that overhead lockout position is going to be a priority. So if it means going a little bit slower, if it means breaking up the reps a little bit more or going lighter, we want to make sure that we can hit that really stacked lockout position where the head is just slightly forward. We are ribs down, butt tight. Nice. Okay, we've got 1:45 until we hit that 2-minute break. And he's got a nice vertical shin, so we know he's really getting those hamstrings on. He's not letting the knees buckle forwards. And he has the same kind of nice straight back hinge pattern as he does that load up, that hang position for the clean here. I really like that when he hits that rack position, he's getting those elbows forward of his hands, right? He's not tucking them back and just doing kind of like a glorified bicep curl sort of a thing. He's actually going to get the elbows through and have that rear head of the dumbbell kind of racked on the shoulder. And that's going to translate nicely into this rack position for the push press. One thing we'll watch out for with the push press, guys, is make sure it doesn't turn into a push jerk, which is where we would dip, drive, and drop back underneath it. It's something that the body will tend to lean towards because it gives you the ability to kind of get under a bit more weight or move the same weight a little bit more easily. We're deliberately going push press to make it a challenge. Okay. Coming up on the last 30 seconds. So he's just going to roll straight into that. He knows that 2-minute break is coming up, so he's going to just grip on, work through these last few reps. Looking good, Matty. 15 seconds. Three, 2, 1, and resting. Okay, so 2-minute break here, guys. Plenty of time to get some good recovery in. What I want you to do is make a note of where you got up to in that first 6-minute section. In the second 6-minute section, we're going to try and match or even possibly beat that one. So it means you will start back at 0 and start to build that score again as a separate score to that first one. We'll be doing the same movements again, but take this time now to just have a little bit of a move around, go and get some water, stretch a little bit if you need to. Always a good idea to kind of like dry the handles on the dumbbells or the kettlebell, get as much sweat off there as you can, makes it easier on that grip. Okay, 1 more minute's break, and I'm going to get into this next 6-minute section. So remember, always a good idea, guys, just to review the technique a little bit, right? Think about the deadlift, the hang power clean, the push press. Can I do it even more efficiently? Can I hit those positions even better? Is the weight that I'm using appropriate? Am I able to string things together? All those things, try and get it to run really smoothly. I'm going to take a little bit more rest, so about 20 more seconds, and then we're going to hit this second section. 10 seconds. So we're going to start back at the deadlifts. All right, 3, 2, 1, and go for it. So guys, let's keep in mind the score we hit in the first section. Keep in mind the time splits we were hitting in that first section. See if we can stay on par with that or possibly even accelerate a little bit past it. It's always a good idea to be able to kind of challenge yourself in the realm of controlling your output, pacing, all those sorts of things. If we're able to do this with 2 6-minute sections, then when we do like a big 15, 20-minute workout, 30-minute workout, we have some idea of our capacity and we can control that to get the best possible score rather than going out too hot and then blowing up in the process. And Matty has got this really nice sort of short, sharp dip drive on the push press. He's not doing like a thruster or a partial thruster where it's like a really labored, like long squat position. It's literally just dipping the knees and rebounding straight back out. So it's almost going to have the feeling of like a bounce motion, yeah? So nice straight back, guys. Remember, only go as deep as you can go with a straight back. Matty's obviously nice and flexible. He has the ability to get all the way down there, but if you struggle with that, pull the height up a little bit, give yourself a different marker to go for. Now this movement, guys, the hang power clean and the push press, they are power-based movements. So we just talked about that short, sharp, aggressive dip drive on the push press. The hang power clean has that hinge pattern, so it's down and straight back out. It should feel almost like a kettlebell swing. And he's making a point of just getting that head just slightly forward of his arms. Doesn't have to be super over exaggerated. We just definitely don't want to leave that head out behind. Want to make sure that we can reach the body into that good position. So reaching the arms up to a strong lockout, head slightly forward. And that way the dumbbells, wrists, elbows, shoulders, all the joints down the body are going to stack on top of each other. We don't want to have that feeling of like leaning back away from it. Okay, so 2 minutes down. And we work with dumbbells as opposed to a barbell, guys. The tendency for the knees to collapse in, especially on like a deadlift or hang power clean, becomes a lot greater, right? They kind of bobble around. The legs are always trying to avoid them. So you want to make sure that we've got a stance that allows us to keep the knees open and have the dumbbells in that hang position without them kind of interrupting each other or getting in the way of each other. That outwards flare out of the knee on the deadlift, on the hang power clean, pretty much on any movement that we do, like squats or anything like that, it's going to be a lot about getting the glutes and the hips to kind of tie in together and really work hard through there. If we're collapsing in, things are kind of switching off, shutting down, and everything's just getting a bit loose and a bit inefficient. Pass halfway, Matty, doing good. Okay, short little break. Now, if we watch Matty's feet here, you'll find that when he comes down and kind of braces to do that change of direction back up again, heels are going to be flat on the floor. When he actually hits the peak of that extension, you'll notice that he kind of pops up onto his toes a little bit. That's what we call triple extension. It might even possibly happen with this push press as well. And that's just a result of the legs extending so aggressively that we kind of drive up a little bit up onto the toes just to get that extra little bit of power. So that's a good thing if we can do that. The main thing is remembering that when we come down and we're weight bearing and loading, we want those heels flat on the floor. Okay, coming into the last 90 seconds. Nice, Matty. So Matty's done a good job of still stringing all these things together. He hasn't had to break them up just yet. And you can do that at home, can break them up if you need to, but hopefully we can kind of hang on to it, get that nice cycling kind of a feel. Now, one thing that's a big game changer with this hang power clean, and it'll be very similar with the push press, is a big shrug at the top, right? We're hip extending, that's going to get those dumbbells to start to kind of travel, and then the shrug is really going to get that last little whip of energy to get them to really pop up. So make sure that you're thinking like at the top, get tall, but also get those big like Frankenstein shoulders, get it to pop up nice and high. Okay, last 45 seconds. It's a nice vertical position Matty's got here, so when he dips, it's really just the knees going forward, it's not the hips pushing back. The hips are going to basically stay in line with the rest of his body, and it's just the legs that will flare outwards and forwards. Okay, last 15 seconds. Nice, Matty, last couple of reps. 3, 2, 1, and done. Alrighty, that is the move workout done, guys. Get a little bit of recovery time, and then we're gonna check out the finisher next. Okay, so we're looking at the finisher now, guys. This one is gonna be some midline stability work. So what we're gonna see is 2 movements. We've got hollow rocks, which is the first one. That's gonna be 15 reps, setting up in that hollow, and we're just gonna rock back and forth on that low back. Okay, 15 of those then rolls into 15 Superman rocks. So it's rolling over basically the same thing, but in reverse, okay? So 15 and 15, now you guys have got a 4-minute window to get 3 sets done. There's not really a designated time in which you have to do it on the minute or on the 2, whatever. Just go through that in 4 minutes, break when you need to. Try to keep the sets themselves unbroken, but maybe in between rounds, have a little bit of a chill, get some recovery in. Good to go? All right, starting in 10. All right, 3, 2, 1, and go for it. So important thing with this, guys, is the main one is getting the shoulders off the ground, right? There's really never a time that you should feel the upper back or the right at the top of your back where your shoulders are touching the floor. We really want to just kind of be curvy through that low back and go from pretty much the top of your butt to the bottom of your rib cage. So it's actually quite a small, quick sort of movement. If you find that you're rocking so far forward that your heels are hitting the ground, or you're rolling back and your head and your shoulders are touching the ground, it's too big, too far. Okay, as I said, this one is pretty much just the reverse thing. So limbs nice and extended, rocking back and forth. You'll find that you're mostly on your abdomen and the front of your pelvis with this one. You might kind of just start to hit the bottom of the rib cage there, and you might find that the sort of the tops of your thighs might touch a little bit as well. So just rocking back and forth on that one. A little bit of rest in between the rounds, and then we'll jump into the next set. So we've got 3 rounds of this. Maybe a 30-second rest if that feels good. So generally we want to try and structure the rest to allow us to keep going unbroken. So use up that 4 minutes if you need to. Don't take like a 5-second rest and do it again and then end up having to break it up. Rather see you take sort of 30 or 45 seconds rest and then allow that to keep going unbroken. All right, a couple of things that are really nice about Matty's positioning here is the legs are dead locked out, toes pointed, ankles tight together, and his arms are straight up overhead, elbows locked out. So there's really no bends or breaks there. The full body is just one tensioned piece that's rocking back and forth. You don't have any limbs kind of moving independent of each other. Everything's just moving as one piece. If you imagine like a banana just kind of rocking back and forth, it's not opening and closing, it's just one solid piece. And this is going to be the same for this Superman position. Now, one of the hardest things about this movement, guys, is getting it started. Obviously, Matty's awesome, so you can just jump straight into it. But for those of you who maybe haven't done it before, it does help sometimes to just get a little bit of a push with your arms, almost like you're doing a push up into a up dog position. Drop into that rock, and then you can continue and get those arms out. That's a good way to kind of start the movement off. Once that rock is going, it's not too bad, but generally getting that first one going is the hardest part. Now we've got one more round. I'm going to get Matty to do a scaled down version now, so you've got some different options to work with. So we'll go to a short tuck hollow on this one, and then the Superman one, we'll just have hands on the ground, do a little bit of press. So again, just taking that little bit of rest. We'll probably go to about the 3-minute marker here, I think. He's done the last minute. All right, when you're ready. So this one we're gonna do a little bit scaled down, guys. So you're gonna see Maddie's gonna go arms are down by his side, knees tucked in. Okay, but he still has those toes pointed, still has the ankles sort of switched on and clicked in together there. Making sure that he's not hanging onto his legs with his hands and self-assisting. You wanna make sure that that drive is really coming from the abs, keeping those ribs tucked down to the belly. It'll be the same contact point on the ground, so still keeping the shoulders off, still going from sort of bottom of the rib cage to the top of the butt. Now the Superman one, we're gonna have the hands just outside the shoulders, tension the legs on, and they're just going back and forth there. You can keep your hands on the ground if you want, press off, yep. Okay, and we're just rocking back and forth. So this one is something that you can do to kind of just work on the leg and the lower body part of this, and the arms are just gonna kind of help create that rock. Okay, that's a scaled down version you can play around with for that. Alrighty, so that is the finisher done, guys. Grab some recovery and then I'm gonna go with some cool down stretches in a moment to finish off. Alrighty guys, so now that all the hard stuff's done, we're just gonna cool down with a few mobility drills. The first one we're gonna do is some alternating side bends. So we're gonna do this for 1 minute. And what Matty's gonna do is he's gonna take one foot behind the other and then basically reach over to that side. So he's gone left foot over to the right, reaching to the right, and just holding it for sort of 5 or 10 seconds. If you're hopefully having a decent stint of this mobility work, guys, spending 5 or 10 minutes doing it, feel free to extend on it. You might hold for 30 seconds each side. If you're just doing it as a short run through, 5 or 10 seconds is good, and just going back and forth, really looking to get into the lats, everything down the side, like the rib cage, down to the obliques, down to the hip, the whole deal. Notice Maddie's arm position is beautiful, right? It's really locked out, reaching tall, reaching over. Sometimes people do this one, they just kind of go bent arms and just tilt. You will get a little bit of stretch, but creating that length in the arms is really going to ramp it up. The leg switchover is just going to kind of wind up down through the side of the thigh into the hip there, so it'll just create a little bit more tension in there. All right, so that's drill number 1. Second one we're going to do is scorpion tail. So this is going to be flat on our belly on the ground. We're going to do a similar sort of deal. It's going right to left. We'll do this for the next minute. So Maddie's arm has gone out either straight out from the shoulder or slightly upwards. We don't want to have it below the shoulder. We want to be up high here. He's going to hold for a moment and then he'll roll it back the other way. So this arm now reaches out on that side angle there. Notice the body position. He's almost turning completely over, like he's almost facing the roof. So this is going to kind of attack 2 parts of the body. One is going to be like bicep, shoulder, pec, that whole kind of shoulder complex there. We're also going to have the opposite hip as that leg rolls over. It's really going to open up through the hip flex. You might even get a little bit of quad as well. And again, we're thinking sort of 5-10 seconds, holding, and then just going back and forth. If you've got more time to play around with this, guys, spend 30, 60, whatever seconds you've got, just to roll over and hold that end range position. Alrighty, so those are our 2 drills, guys. Let's see 3 or 4 rounds of that. Spend some time on it, get the body loose. Otherwise, we'll catch you next time, and that's been your MOV+ workout.